Welcome back to Recovered Life. It's Damon Frank, and I am here with Kevin Kline, spiritual and transformation coach. How you doing today, Kevin?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've had this ongoing conversation about the book When Things Fall Apart and how it applies in your recovery. And one of the big questions that I have been really wanting to ask you is, you talk a lot about in your spiritual coaching the necessities of love and compassion. And I wanted to kind of focus in on that and see if you could, shine a little bit of light on that and how it relates to when things fall apart.
Wow, this is a huge topic. So in a nutshell, in a walnut size, what I'll say is that the only way we can really learn how to, I'll say, be a force for good in the universe, learn how to have a really better life, a really better recovered life, is to be in love and compassion for ourselves and for other people. Getting there, for most of us is a process. Most of us don't. I believe we all come in that way, and then we're influenced into a different set of thoughts. But learning how to distinguish what's coming, what our own belief systems are, and making friends with them, and so that they don't have like a run amok power over us, and embracing self-love and self-compassion. The ego just wants to keep us safe. It wants to make sure we wants to make sure we don't stick our hand in a fire, or take an axe to our fingers, or eat poisonous food, or get in front of an oncoming dinosaur, right? But as time has evolved, as human beings have evolved mentally and spiritually and emotionally, then the need, or seeing the need, I should say, for having a larger scope of thought is really important. It isn't just about, well, what's in it for me? What are my needs? What are you going to do for me? Right? Because that's the ego. That's the ego.
Well, many people, Kevin, honestly, they might be watching this in early recovery and saying, what does love and compassion have to do at all with staying sober? I just want to stay sober, right? And I want to try to get my life back. But people who have been in recovery for a long period of time, I think they understand that your best recovered life is really a spiritual game, right? It's really about spirituality, and love and compassion is a key component to being able to be happy and sober long term.
Right. Well, one of the things that hardly gets discussed anymore in meetings is the spiritual malady. They'll talk about the other two all day long and won't even mention that it's a three-pronged disease, right? And I believe that spiritual malady is what comes first, and then the rest just, descends from there. But in order to stay sober over the long term, it's more than just going to meetings. It's even more than just doing the steps. It's more than being a sponsor. It's about cultivating an inner life with God and having that be the focus, because that's where the true joy of life comes. That's where the true freedom from bondage comes. That's where the true ability to be of service, to other people comes. But to get there is a process of acknowledging the ego, of learning to let go of judgment, the good and bad stuff, and just being in, and doing the footwork that we've been told to do. For people who are new, it's like, sorry, but the footwork works. And and discipline has to happen. But moving away from just that, well, yeah, precision. It could end up being precision, but moving from that, just sort of day to day, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, robotic sort of stuff, because that works for a while and then it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
When all of a sudden the big feelings start showing up, that's when the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
And when we can cultivate some self-love and know that we really are doing the best that we can. My favorite thing when I was new was just, I must have said the Serenity Prayer at least 100 times a day, at least, and or even the shortened version, which I won't say today. But moving, getting into that, getting into the awareness that that uh, that if God is really everything, and that's what I believe, and as far as I'm concerned, God is all love, then there must be that here. And if I'm not connecting with it, then I need to work to do that. And that can look like service to others. That can look like seeing that somebody else is having a bad day, and knowing that, even if they're being a butthead, that they're having a bad day, and so
Yeah.
having some compassion for them and not just taking it personally is a really good start.
I love that you address that. And I want to ask the $1,000,000 question here that I know
Right.
people are thinking. I know that I'm thinking this is, as a spiritual coach, how do you help people get a transformation by applying love and compassion? Because obviously that does help create the transformation. How do you, what are some of the things that you do and apply?
Well, the first, sorry to say, but is to take full responsibility. And I think that's why a lot of people end up bailing, and they don't continue, because they have to own their side of the street.
Hmm.
It's like, I can acknowledge my ego and say thank you for sharing. Now go to your room. I can learn to sit in non-judgment of myself and others. Um, but when the rubber hits the road, I am responsible for what's going on in my life. And as long as I stay in denial about that there's no changing it, because I can't change you. I can't change the world. All I can do is be willing to change, to examine my own thought process, to see where it comes from, to learn how to make, learn how to go in a different direction with my thoughts, so that I can make different choices, so that I can have a more empowered life.
Well, what's
Um,
one way that you do that? What's one way that you can practice? Because I want to, what I love to do here on Recovered Life is to give people some really strong takeaways, like maybe one thing that people could practice that would allow them to have more love and compassion in their life.
well, first make a commitment to do that. Make a decision to do that. The universe supports our intentions, but we have to make them. We have to be conscious about what intentions we're making, because we're making them all the time. And if you want to know what your intentions are, what your beliefs are, look at what you have, because that's what's manifesting, right? If I am responsible, for my life, the whole 9 yards, then uh, then I can take the steps, literally and figuratively. I can take the steps to um, make changes in my life by surrendering, by praying, by meditating, by making the intention that I want to have and feel more love in my life, because it feels better. I mean, even if it's just that, it feels better. It feels better to love than it does to be angry. It feels better to have joy than it does to have curiosity. You know, it feels better, and even if it's just starting from there, I want to do that because it just feels better. Then that's fine. because we can move, we progress, in recovery with why we're doing things and how we're doing things, and learning how to give that away. I can learn how to be more loving with myself, and then I can be more loving with you. I can be more compassionate with myself, and I can be more compassionate with you. And that's really the end game.
Yeah,
I think.
I find, Kevin, that's interesting about the way in which people in recovery, especially early recovery, they think, I'm going to do some sort of weird behavior modification, or I'm going to do a task so that I can get a thing. And then when I get this thing, then I'm going to feel differently. And that is definitely the wrong direction, right? Like, so ways in which to practice this love and compassion is just to maybe just do a task simply because it will help someone, and to just drop the whole expectation of what's going to happen when you practice love and compassion.
Right. Well, the whole thing that we used to share a lot, and I haven't heard it in ages, is the, being of service, doing something for somebody else without getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no ego satisfaction from it. It's just, there's nobody going, oh, well, thank you so much for what you just did for me. It's, sorry, my lighting is in and out.
Okay.
But to do it because it's the right thing to do. And yes, when we do things differently, we get different results. When I came in, I thought I was going to just John Wayne it, pull myself up by my bootstraps, just stop drinking and everything's going to be groovy, until I figured out I had alcoholism, and then what that meant, and then it was like, oh, and things do get different, and then they get weird, and then they get real different, and then they get real weird, when they, and then they, the roller coaster slows down a bit.
Yeah.
So one of the things that a friend of mine who's getting sober again said, that this old timer came up to her and said, have you made a decision yet? And she was confusing that with the power of choice over drinking or not, right? People with a lot of time, especially people from back in the day, can have what we think is a funny way of showing love, like sit down, shut up, and listen. Yeah.
But I think sometimes telling people the truth is an act of love and compassion. What you find a lot of times in recovery is people will love you enough to actually tell you the truth. They'll say, hey, you're not acting well. But at the same time, you address something that was, I think, very important, which was these acts of kindness that people don't know, and I loved what you said about, just doing it because it's the right thing to do, or doing it simply, it could just be feeding somebody who doesn't have food, doing it just because you can do it, right? Just because you can, and letting go of the expectation about what that means, what people will think. And I found when we're, to kind of bring this full circle, and one of the things I wanted to address with you, and one of the final topics here with the necessities of love and compassion, is when things fall apart, that's when we feel that, well, we can't do loving. There's not enough love and compassion to go around. I need all of that energy for me because don't you see things are falling apart? But that's not the case, right? That's when you need love and compassion the most, right, Kevin?
Right. Absolutely. It's learning how to set aside the things that we think we need and think we want, and focusing on somebody else, even for a little bit, is so important. Service work in recovery is critical. And a lot of the young people coming in today don't understand that. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, because I know that service work, which is love in action, service work is a way for me to get out of my own head. When we're new, we need to do that. We need to get out of that, that bad neighborhood for a while, and go talk to somebody else. We used to be able to wash cups, and people are going, what are you talking about? We don't wash styrofoam, right? But but going into a clubhouse and sweeping the floor, or
Well, it could just be as simple also in practicing this in your life. It could just be as simple as taking out the trash at your home, or dropping off something for your neighbor, or picking up the newspaper and bringing it to their front porch, right? It's, it's service in general. It's what you also do in the world. It's the bigger picture of that's going to keep you going long-term. You might learn that in early recovery through a 12-step program, but it's really also how you apply that in the bigger sense. Right. Wouldn't you agree? In the world, that's going to give you the result that you need.
Well, yes. We in recovery are sort of forced into a channel for this behavior, because otherwise the results of the opposite could be drastic. If I pick up, with my amount of time, if I pick up alcohol, there's a really good chance I'll die of alcohol poisoning in a couple of days. And that's the truth. Or decide that that driving off a cliff is a really good idea, because people do that. This is not stuff we're making up, right? So we're sort of forced down that channel of being good people or better people, or there's that good and bad stuff, but doing things that serve others rather than ourselves.
Yeah,
but
I love that.
In the big picture, in a human race picture, that I believe that's why we're here. We're here to love and to be of service. We're here to love and to be of service.
I think the final thought, of this episode, I think the big takeaway that I'm learning for you is also look for these opportunities in ways, in ways that you won't be noticed, to practice love and compassion, and weave that into your daily spiritual practice.
Not only put your own cart back at the grocery store, but grab somebody else's and put it back.
Words of wisdom.
And don't tell anybody about it, not even your sponsor.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. This was a really great episode, and you could learn a little bit more about Kevin by going to therecoveredlife.us, and we will tag him here in the stream, and you can contact him. Thanks so much, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.